Call the Maplewood Planning Commission to order on April 18th. Roll call.
Lou Yang, present.
Tushar Desai, present.
Paul Arbuckle, present.
Fred Don, present.
Approval of the minutes from February 21st. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission, staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
There's been
As
a
presented.
motion by Lou, second by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission, staff does not have any amendments to the minutes as presented.
Need a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Tushar made a motion. Second by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes. Number E, public hearing, conditional use permit resolution, multi-residential development at 2627 Stillwater Road East. Staff?
Sure, Chair and Commission, Planner Hammond here will be detailing the report and walking through some slides here in a second, but as she pulls that up, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of provide some context to the overall discussion. And a lot of this will make more sense as we get into the bulk of the discussion. But this is really on the table for you tonight due to the city's rental licensing program. So a few years ago, the City Council adopted rental housing licensing as a requirement for all units, single-family, multifamily units, two units, everything in between, right? So everything, if you're a rental unit, needs to be licensed. With that, we have an inspector that has, in the last year, been in every building in the city and has done inspections, every rental building. And so an issue like what you're being presented tonight was unearthed and brought to the city's attention due to that requirement, due to those inspections. So that's just kind of, again, setting the table for why this is being brought to the Planning Commission. And with that, I'll pass it off to Ms. Hammond, who will provide more of the details and the specifics of what is entailed with moving forward.
Thank you, Mike. Well, good evening, Chair and Commission. So tonight we are looking at a request to approve a multiple residential dwelling on this property, which is located at 2627 Stillwater Road East. The site is just under a half acre, and the applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit. The current controls of the property are future land use. It is guided as mixed-use neighborhood. The zoning is business commercial modified. The comprehensive plan guides the property for neighborhood serving commercial retail and medium to high-density residential housing. So by that guidance, the proposal meets the intent of the comprehensive plan. The property owner requests approval for 10 residential apartment units on the property. City code requires a conditional use permit for multiple residential dwelling units in the business commercial modified zoning district. A little background. The city has documentation of 6 residential units on the property when the City Council approved a change to the land use plan and zoning designation in 1985, and that information was provided in your staff report. The land use was changed from residential low density to residential business, and the zoning was changed from business commercial to business commercial modified. The 4 additional units added to the building were without city review or approval, and they, as Mike mentioned, discovered during the required inspection with the city's rental licensing program. So this request, tonight we're asking you to make a motion on a recommendation and going to the council next month. If it's approved, it would formally authorize those 10 existing residential units, dwelling units. It would not increase the number of units beyond what exists today. So historically, there has been a mix of commercial and residential dwelling units in the building. In that staff report, it's referenced different, commercial and residential uses in there. Based on the limited documentation that we have, it's unknown when those additional units were added to the building. the process would have required a conditional use permit before modifying that structure to add those 4 additional dwelling units. So if this process had been followed and approved, the property owner would have been required to meet the residential building code requirements, and that would ensure that all the life and safety requirements were included in each housing unit. So today, the conditional use permit, if approved, would bring the property in compliance with the required zoning approval for the multiple residential dwelling units. From a land use standpoint, staff is supportive of the request as it meets the land use guidance of the comprehensive plan. If it's approved by the city council, the property owner will have to work with the city's building official to ensure that the property is brought into compliance with all the required building codes. Residential dwelling units will need to meet requirements for residential habitable space. If the applicant does not meet those requirements of the building official to bring all those units in compliance with the building code, the property owner would be required to remove all illegal units, meaning ones that do not meet code above that, the 6 units, and then would be subject to civil or criminal citations issued by the city. So I'm not going to read through all of the building official's comments, but this is an important thing to note. While we understand that this is a little, the process is flipped, we did make sure to condition this conditional use permit to include that all these items, would be addressed for the life safety. So the applicant would need to hire a licensed architect to inspect that building and provide a layout showing the different construction in there and recommendations on where it's substandard, on what needs to be done. The architect would provide those drawings for review to confirm residential and commercial spaces in the building. So once those drawings have been completed, then she could apply for a building permit by a licensed contractor would submit a building permit for the change of use and then any necessary construction. So it may be that, it's hard to say, but it may be that through that process it's determined that there wouldn't be the ability to have all 10 units. The conditional use permit is written so that it would be permitted to have up to 10 units, meaning that if through that process, working with the building official, her working with a licensed architect, it's determined that maybe there can only be 7, she wouldn't have to come back here to have that amended. It would just be reviewed in our administrative permit process. Engineering. Applicant will need to obtain sewer availability charges or SAC charges, a determination letter from the Metropolitan Council, their Environmental Services Division. So any units that were in use prior to 1973 would be grandfathered in, but any units that have been that haven't been paid for will need to be paid, and provided some approximate costs in that staff report as well for the Met Council's SAC unit and then the city's SAC and WAC unit. So the total per SAC unit charge would be $2,900. We did survey the surrounding properties and sent that public hearing notice to properties within 500 feet. One comment was received. It was received just after the staff report was sent out to you. It was just on Monday morning. So we did provide that hard copy to you ahead of the meeting. And there are some copies in the back with the public report copy. So tonight, we're asking you to review this conditional use permit application. On May 8th, this will go to the City Council for consideration. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit subject to the conditions that are outlined in the resolution, and we're happy to discuss this or answer any questions.
What is isn't the minimum square footage 780 or 750 for a studio? What is the smallest?
Chair and Commission, for efficiency or one bedroom, it's 560 square feet.
So we already got a problem there then, because they're all 3 something, aren't they?
Well, Chair and Commission, here's, Elizabeth walked through the issues very succinctly and very well. What I want to emphasize to you, again, with an approval, if that's what ultimately gets moved forward from as a recommendation by you and by the State Council, you're not approving what's there today.
Okay, so it can be not code compliance with the size, but,
We know that there's inconsistencies with code. So
Okay.
what Elizabeth at the end, when she talked about her recommendations of approval, what it's stating is that things that the property owner cannot do themselves. They need a licensed architect to provide signed plans that shows that they're meeting all the building code requirements, city requirements, and then pull the permits, because we're fairly confident it's going to require some interior work.
Right.
We know that there's been walls put up without permits, there's been units created without permits. There's, this is just me speaking, but there's just no way that there's not gonna have to be some work done.
There's no code variances being questioned.
Correct. So what we're trying to do is work with the property owner to get minimums met. And those are minimum building codes, minimum safety codes, just everything to our minimum standards, so that we, as part of, again, the city ordinances, the rental licensing program, there's assurances made that this is a minimum living standard that Maplewood has established.
okay. So the SAC, the sewer assessment there, how, do they go back to 73 then when they make that call, or is that, what if they only did it from, it was done after, done in the 90s then?
So, Chair and Commission, the Metropolitan Council, so we're a pass-through. The city is a pass-through for that fee. Metropolitan Council has their records. So any property owner, you have a project that's later on this evening, if they get approved, they're doing this same process. They're getting a determination letter. Every project that's built gets this determination letter from the Metropolitan Council, so that they understand how many units have to be paid for, and then we collect that upon building permit and pass through those costs to the Metropolitan Council. As Elizabeth mentioned, there's a small fee that the city has on top, but the vast majority of that is, again, we're just passing through. So that's something that should have been done as
Right.
units have been being converted and built out. So they need to, the property owner needs to work with the Metropolitan Council to find out what that determination is and how many credits. We know credits will be owed.
Right.
What it is, that's what they have to figure out.
It'll most likely be less because there's no washers in the rooms too.
Likely.
Right.
So staff, my other question related to the same thing is, I understand where the condition is, but has the owner of the property been told that this is subject to a significant amount of changes and cost associated with it, and that they still want to go forward with the permit, or they don't?
Chair and Commission, yes, we've provided this information to the applicant, and our plan is to meet with her as well after this meeting, and depending upon what happens at the council meeting, to make sure that she understands next steps and what needs to be done. But yes, she's aware that we need the architectural drawings and that there will be SAC fees. We have had at least a phone conversation regarding this.
Okay.
And Chair and Commission, I would just add, this is, the conditional use permit process is, comes after several months of discussion with our rental housing licensing inspector and the property owner about how to correct these issues, how to address the issues. There's been multiple pathways for the property owner to have gone down in terms of eliminating the illegal units, or going the pathway that you're starting tonight with the conditional use permit, or ultimately she could have done nothing and we would have cited her at this point. So there was a deadline established for either applying for a conditional use permit, or there would have been a civil citation issued. And so the application was met and made on time, and that's the process we're going through at this point.
So there are no businesses there like it was originally in 84, right? That's just one, the office, is that, so it's all apartments now, right?
Chair and Commission, I would maybe let the applicant confirm that. It's my understanding she has an office in there, but everything else is residential.
Right. I didn't read in the report from 84 that said the amount of units in there. Was it, did I miss that? Was that in there that said something about?
There.
That's correct. It was in the staff report.
But it
from-
wasn't in the notes from the meeting, though, in 84?
No, it's not noted in the meeting minutes or in the resolution.
Okay.
It's noted in the background section of the report.
Okay.
That would be on the packet page 23 of 89. At the top of the page, it has a site description, and it notes the size, and then it says existing land use, 6 apartments, video store, aluminum window door mart, hanging around store, alteration station, and an office, it appears, for Walter J. Miller and Associates, I believe, the previous owner. So again, historically, it's had a mix of residential and commercial that's existed on the site prior to the rezoning, prior to the rental licensing program, and prior to this conditional use permit requirement. The issue is that at some time, additional units were added that weren't noted and approved at that rezoning, and because we don't know how and suspect that they don't meet life safety standards, we're requiring this conditional use permit first to approve the land use, saying that she can have up to 10 units if she can meet those requirements, and then to ensure that those standards are achieved by working with an architect to get floor plans produced, showing the layout, meeting the building officials' requirements, and then, of course, working with Met Council on the SAC fees.
But in 85, when that changed, that was because of the businesses. They had to update that because of the multi-businesses. Is that why it came in 85? Is that what I understand?
It was rezoned from business commercial to business commercial modified, I believe, at that time, just in reading through it. Again, there's limited documents. It, I think, was to accommodate for the apartment, the residential component on the site, because at that time it was allowed with a conditional use permit.
The residential grew and then the business shrank.
Right.
No, not yet. We have to have her talk.
We'll open it up, I guess.
Would you like to come up then and speak? This is your building, right?
Yes.
You're the owner?
The property owner is here today. This is Cecilia Chang.
Oh, okay. You have to come up to the microphone then, and put your, if there's a sign-in sheet there, then put your name and address there.
Oh, I have to, okay. I don't know if I bring, oh, there's a pen right here. Oh, I have to write this?
Just just a sign in so we know who was here and who spoke.
Now, you're not the owner then, is that what I heard?
No, she is the owner.
Okay. Was that why I heard she was the owner? She is the owner?
Yeah, we purchased the building back in 1995, and the owner that we purchased from, he told us that the original owner, she was actually still living there, Miller's family, and they used to have restaurant, they live there, they have apartments, they have restaurant, they have grocery store, and I think for a time they all bunch of property tax at $50,000 or more, and then they could not make a mortgage payment, so it was foreclosed by bank. So the bank sold to a guy to try to, because the roof was leaking, this, that, they tried to fix it, and then we bought it from that guy. So the building was built in 1947, and I think the add-on part, when I try to replace, when I have people replace those faucets, it says 1965. So I guess the additional part was built in 1965. And as far as the sewer, I didn't know everything was there. So when I bought it, everything was there. And the time we bought it, I have 3 children. They went to Beaver Lake Elementary, and we lived there, and I had my office there. I was a financial advisor, like a state, registered investment advisor. So I worked there and raised my kids there. And then later on, we bought another house in Stillwater. So, but it has been, and all these people been living there. They've been living there a long time. And back then, I didn't know that we only allowed to have 6 units because we ourselves, we live there too. So not until like they started to have this rental licensing program, and they told me that I can have only 6 residential units there, and the rest would have to be commercial. But the reason I did have like a motorcycle before, and then the motorcycle just early in the morning, in and out, and then people tend to complain it's just too noisy. So when they moved, I did not rent it to business again. We just very much just took it as our own living space, that's it. So I just, the reason why I keep it all residential, because I like to keep it quiet, and less people come in and out of the buildings, it will be easier for me to manage. So, and it has been, actually all this unit I'm adding for 4 units, the people have been living there for years. So I would try, I would walk through all the process and see how much I can do, but to the event, I told my tenant, like, oh, this is commercial, I'm trying to apply permit, but if I cannot rent it to you, you have to move. And then they told me they have no place to go. They have to live out, in their car. So, but anyway, I will walk through it, and then if I don't get approved, I would have to just keep it, either vacant or rent it to a small business, or like barber shop, or something, or like insurance office or whatever. So, but I'm trying, because I already have people living there, and people have been living there for years. And because I didn't know that I could only rent 6 units, so all this unit, everything was there, and I rent it to people, and the people, they love the place, and I try to keep it quiet, and I own it and I manage it, so my rents are more reasonable than many other places. And people, they very much, I got all parking space surround the building. So everybody just like park right in front of the unit. It's more like side by side. So they all like the place. Nobody wants to move. Only the move thing is like they owe me too much rent and I have to go to court to file eviction. Otherwise, nobody is willing to move out themselves because they like it. It's like they can just park there and walk into the unit and come out. And my unit, they are small. I put down 300 and something because the time there was people there. So I couldn't really go in and try to measure each room. But there was one people that he owed me like $2,000 some. And he tried to get to a job, but he couldn't. He still could not make it. So one day he just took out on me and leave a bunch of junk, and I had to clean it. So I did try, that's apartment number 8. So I tried to go in and measure. It's actually bigger than I put down in the paper. Yeah. So I guess my number could be a little bit too small because I was just trying to measure outside and then deduct the wall. The wall is really thick. It's all cement block. So I try to deduct the wall and try to do this measure myself. I didn't really go in the room and because there's people there and they got dogs, so I don't want to bother them.
Do you know how many square feet the whole building is?
The whole building is, when we bought it, I think it was recorded like over 7,000 square feet.
700?
7,000.
7,000?
Yeah. And I actually, when I bought the place, they actually have 14 units rented, like my office now used to be alteration station, like a lady was doing alteration, and then and under my office there's a studio with full kitchen and a shower. It's actually people can, and they used to be rented too, to like, usually I just take one person or not more than 2. So it was rented too, and then there was another window. It's a person, a gentleman, live close the street. He kind of rent the space to do his windows, display. So when customer come and he got a phone there, they just call and then he just walk over the street and show them all the window. And then I have another one. is like, the previous, the person I bought from, he has, like a handyman. And the handyman rent a place for only $50 a month, but he used the place also have electricity, has water, and he just use it as his workshop. So, and I try to keep quiet, so when I bought the building, I actually take all these 4 spots for just myself. So this window display office and this like a walk, like a workshop. I just use it for storage. And then my office used to be alteration, and below my office is actually one studio. Got everything is livable, but I cannot rent it because what happened is a window. It has to, because it's considered
Fire
like
escape.
basement, I have to enlarge the window. So I just keep it, for myself, to be comfortable when I'm there. So anyway, I have tried. I really did not spend anything, and I didn't do any sewer. It's all existing. It probably have been there like before 1965, or could be there already in 1947. And I didn't do anything to it. So, and then when I bought it, I just keep it as it, and I just rent it, and I just try to reduce the traffic, so that it can be quiet, because it's just that when we had a motorcycle shop, it was just every morning, boom, boom, boom. It's really noisy. And then another thing is all the surrounding area, it's all residential. So we are very much just that commercial building.
Have you had complaints about noise in that?
Huh?
Have you had complaints about noise?
Oh, that was before, when
Before?
it was rented to one motorcycle shop, my motorcycle accessory. So when the motorcycle accessory, when they moved out, we lived there too. At that time, I got, 3 children. They all went to Beverly Elementary. I mean, I'm old. I don't look that old, but I'm old. But anyway, so we just took the space, for ourselves. So, and I like it. I like this. I like the place. The building is old, but
Is there certain spots in here that have more square footage? Because if you take
oh,
7,000 and divide it by 10, that's 700, and these
yeah,
rooms are 300
yeah,
and something,
well,
so.
all these, the spot I have, it's like a smaller, but we do have like people upstairs, they probably have 500-600 square feet for 1 bedrooms, and I got a laundry room too, and then I got like behind my office is apartment 5. When I bought it, the Miller Eve, she only paid $300 in rent. So anyway, she was
So
still living there.
if they
That-
make you change the size, you have the ability.
No,
to-
I did not change
No,
inside.
if the city code has to change, I'm not sure that we're going to do that, but I didn't quite clear it, but if you had to, you have the space there to make it happen, that's what I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, if it's that the case, I may just take it back and tell people to move, and then I probably just use it as a commercial then. Because that is like, the space I mark in here is just the front of the building, and then the number 8, it's one on the side facing from there. And that one, when we bought it, people were living there. It got everything. It got shower, got kitchen, got everything. It was there. So I just very much rented, what I have, what I see. And one thing is I just took back all these 4 units for myself, try to reduce the amount of renters.
Now, you said that room was all ready to go. Were the other rooms not ready to live?
Oh, no, they all ready to live, yeah, all the front too.
Okay.
Yeah, they all got a bathroom, they got everything in there,
Okay.
yeah. And that was like, and actually same owner, they actually built 2637. And it's such a small building, they got 8 units in there. And I have like big space, and I like, and everybody side by side, they got so much space. But, I mean, the right neighbor, they're really small, and they have like 8 units.
Right.
But it used to be
Did
same
anybody else have
owner.
any other questions? Because
Nope, I think it's pretty clear what we have to do here.
Okay, okay. So, thank you then. I think we've heard quite enough then, so.
Okay,
thank
yeah,
you.
I very much just write down what I say, and I don't like to tell people to move, but you know, I can only do, I'm old, you know, I said, well, what else can I do? You know, I try my best, right?
Well, there's options, so.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
Thank you, thank you.
all right, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this?
Thank you. I'll put my name and address down here first.
And you must be a neighbor then?
Yes, I'm within that 500-foot radius that they talked about.
Okay.
And it's a single-family residence that I live in. And I might have more questions than anything else. And I don't know if it's Planning Commission or maybe city staff. But there have been times when permits have sunset provisions. I don't know if that's the case here or if it's in perpetuity.
Mike, would you go ahead with that one then?
Sure. Depends on what kind of permits we're talking about. So a conditional use permit runs with the property. So if it's approved, it is there in place until the city council takes a different action, and it would transfer to different property owners. If we're talking about building permits and so forth, those they're not open forever, and they do sunset. They're not necessarily transferable in the same way. We do know there is a lack, almost zero record of permits for this property at any point of time, just as context.
Okay.
Another thing is, when I've done some of these things in the past, one of the requirements is that there has to be at least a number of parking stalls for residents. And I haven't heard anything yet or seen anything yet that explains if this property meets that requirement or if they have to limit the number of units just because there's not enough parking for people. I don't know if there's an answer for that.
Yeah, sir, so, you know, that's something that ultimately will be determined. I don't have an answer. But what I can tell you is, as a condition on this resolution, we have required that they show that they can provide that parking. We don't know that they are able to at this time. It appears that there is enough space on site. So the condition number 8 in the resolution states, code requires 2 parking stalls for each multiple residential dwelling unit, with one of those being in an enclosed stall. We did go on to say that because they don't have the enclosed parking stalls for the dwelling units, it approves a waiver to the enclosed parking requirement. But we're still requiring on condition number 9 that they submit a parking plan illustrating the number and location of the parking stalls that they can provide on the site. And if needed, request separately a parking waiver for any reduced stalls.
So if I've counted correctly, when I looked at the map, it looks like there's 15 parking stalls currently, but 10 units. So that would say you should have had 20. And it looks like maybe they're short.
Chair and Commission, you know,
Again.
it's not something we're going to be able to prove at the meeting. There is space in the back of the building too. So it's incumbent on the applicant, the property owner, to submit a parking plan like we normally would get on the front end of a project that would show where these spaces are allocated and allotted for. And if they can't come up with 20, then yeah, as Elizabeth has mentioned a
Downgrade.
few times, it's going to reduce the unit count.
Correct,
That-
correct. Can you state your name and address for all of us, so?
Oh, my name, James Weingartz, and I live at 1091 Ferndale North.
Okay.
So just kind of down and across the street from the building.
And while we're on that, I just would add too, if there's anything else that is determined through that process of reviewing plans that are architecturally, that are drawn up by a licensed architect, if there are any other items that don't meet code, those would also come back, if needed, to either design board or planning commission and council.
Structural engineering.
So all that is not really the item before you tonight is, do you think that we should allow through a conditional use permit up to 10 residential units on the property? It's a little backwards in terms of process, but that's the question this evening.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and the clarification from city staff. At this point, I have no other questions. I'll leave it up to you to make the recommendation to City Council.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Anybody else? Final call? Okay, public hearing is closed then? So,
Go motion, Chair.
yes.
Motion to approve a conditional use permit resolution for a multiple residential dwelling located at 2726 Stillwater Road, subject to certain conditions of approval.
Second?
There's been a motion by Desar, second by Allen. All those in favor?
Aye, yes.
Hearing all ayes, this pass. This is just our recommendations, and this will go before the city council on May
8.
May 8th.
8th. So, it's- okay. Thank you. Number 2, public conditional use permit resolution, multifamily resident project, 1310 Frost Avenue East.
Chair and Commission, thank you. So looking at our second item under the public hearing section on your agenda, JB Vang is a developer that's looking to develop Gladstone Village, which is a 65-unit proposed affordable multifamily apartment project located at 1310 Frost Avenue. You can see on the location map to the right of the screen where the red box square is. That's where the site is proposed, right on the southeast corner of Frost and English. It's currently been a funeral home located on that site. And the size of the property is 1.59 acres. To move forward, the applicant is looking for city approval for a conditional use permit and design review. The Community Design Review Board earlier this evening reviewed the design aspect and did recommend approval as presented to that project. And then this group is looking at the conditional use permit specifically, and we'll dive deeper into that in just a second. So again, 65-unit building. The site is guided by the 24 comprehensive plan in Maplewood as mixed-use neighborhood high density, which allows up to 50 units per acre. So on a site this size, just under 1.6 acres, 79 units could be located on this site. Again, the developer is looking at 65 units. The site is zoned mixed use, which does allow multifamily buildings as a permitted use. It's the 4-story or above 35 feet aspect that triggers the conditional use permit or kicks that in. And that's what you're focusing on tonight for the conditional use, is the aspect of the building being above 4 stories. Just some background on the site plan as proposed. The site would be accessed from a single drive coming off English Street on the west side of the site. The building is pushed to the north, and as required in the mixed-use zoning district, parking is situated to the rear of the building. There's different setbacks than we normally see in the mixed-use district as well, so the building needs to be sited anywhere from the 0-foot lot line back to 20 feet from the front yard. Both English and Frost are considered front yards to this site, and that's why you see the building pushed into the north and touching the west points as you see on the site plan. Parking lots are required to be 5 feet from side and rear parking lots. And I should back up, buildings do not have side or rear setback requirements in the zoning district. Takeaway here, building, parking lot, both aspects are meeting all the setback requirements. This is specifically what the design board dove into this earlier this evening, but to provide this group with an overview. Mixed use has a building material schedule. That's not something we have in most parts of the cities. The north end gets into that as well, but in the mixed use district, we have certain percentage requirements of primary materials, secondary materials, and accent materials. So the building will primarily be built out of 2 different colors of brick and glass, and then secondary materials will include stucco and masonry with some metal panels and accent points throughout the building. All the percentages and everything there is meeting code requirements. Walls longer than 40 feet, which this building certainly has, must be articulated or have some other architectural elements to break up that facade. Again, that's being achieved in segments of 20 to 40 feet, which the code requires. building height, approximately from ground floor or ground grade to the top of the parapet, 48 feet, give or take an inch here or there. That again triggers, kicks in, that conditional use permit requirements, and that's what you're looking at here tonight. So for example, if this was a 3-story building, which is not what we're looking at, it's not necessarily on the table, it's not what the policy is looking at, it wouldn't even have to go to the planning commission or city council. It would just be permitted by right after the design board approved the design. Now, looking at the parking aspect, code states that multifamily buildings provide 2 parking spaces for each unit, with one of those parking spaces being covered. So for a 65-unit building, 65 spaces would need to be enclosed, 130 spaces provided overall. 103 is being provided as by the applicant's request and plans. So that's seeking a waiver of 27 spaces, which also includes 1 space from the covered parking requirement. It's just 1 space under shorts, I guess, for the underneath parking garage. In addition to the parking discussion, this is something that the design board has flexibility on, and was presented to them as part of their discussion today. In the mixed-use district for parking lots, surface parking space lots that have more than 20 spaces, landscape islands are encouraged and required in the mixed-use district. So for every 10 spaces, there should be a landscape island. So for a parking lot this size, 39 spaces, that would be 3 or 4 parking landscape islands. The applicant and staff does concur with this rationale, wants to maximize the amount of surface spaces that are being provided and not lose additional 3 or 4 spaces to the landscaping. And when you look at the site overall and the landscaping that's been provided, we do feel like that is acceptable and reasonable. The applicant provided rationale based on the affordability of the building, the type of families that they anticipate to rent, and then the location of existing transit services as a justification for that parking waiver. And staff does concur with that rationale as well. One other aspect that the design board brought up that I think is something for the planning commission to consider is there's long-term commitments and plans for this building to stay as an affordable project, and the applicant can speak more to what that means and what those requirements take. But if there was ever a conversion to this building, would the planning commission want to consider adding a statement to the conditional use permit of having it, any conversion to, say, market rate need to be reviewed and approved by the city council to, again, look at that parking aspect to see what's worked, what other aspects would need to be considered if there's a significant conversion to the building. Staff's not necessarily suggesting or recommending that, but I think it's worth the planning commission to ponder a bit tonight. So looking into that landscape plan, currently the site has 6 significant trees as defined by code. 3 of those would be removed as part of this project. That means the code with its tree replacement requirements would require the planting of 8 new trees or 16 caliber inches with 2-inch minimum trees. The applicant's proposing 32 new trees. So the requirements are easily being met, and so there's no concerns with the city's tree replacement requirements. The applicant, and this is stated in the resolution, the design resolution that the board reviewed earlier, the applicant will need to provide additional landscaping or screening for the housing units that are to the south of this development, so along that property line, to meet what our screening code requirements are in Maplewood. Just overview on process, staff sent in 2 separate mailings. So one mailing specifically for a survey that allowed residents to provide direct feedback, and then noticing of the public hearing that's going to be held tonight by this group, the Planning Commission, to all property owners within 500 feet. As you will have seen in your staff report, we did not receive any replies until last night, and so that was printed off and included printed out for your review tonight, and that was also given to the CDRB for their review. So again, process-wise, design board, planning commission, those events are happening tonight. City council will take the final look at this on May 8th and make the final decision on all requests. With that, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit for the building height and can stand for any questions that the commission may have. The applicant is also present, and I'll just remind the chair that this is a public hearing.
Mike, what's the maximum setback from Frost and English?
20 feet
20 feet's the max?
for the mixed-use zoning district. So not every property on those streets are zoned mixed use, but
Right.
in that district, yes.
Okay. Because it's also the Gladstone Savannah thing, right? Is that, or is that just because of mixed uses? Has nothing to do with the Savannah area, right?
It has nothing to do with the Savannah, correct. It's the zoning designation for this site that has the 0 to 20-foot setback range.
And we're gonna not have a problem with the fourth story not being recessed back or anything? That,
No, Chair and Commission, but again, given the scale and the other articulation and architectural elements, staff did not have any concern with a stepping back of a fourth level.
okay. And the infiltration thing is gonna be enough to suck all the water up, that not gonna have much runoff?
Chair and Commission, our, staff engineer has reviewed it and has that report included with your report. There's some additional stormwater calculations they'd like to see, but there's no overarching concerns that have been identified. In addition to the city review, they will need to pull permits and get approval from the watershed district.
I've got a question on the parking. We are giving them that 30-some parking spots, but you're not considering any potential for visitor parking that would require some parking spot, some handicap parking, also up on the outside, not inside. I saw inside they have a couple of parking spots for handicap, which is good, but at least on the outside. So to me, we are probably in need of at least 8 to 10 more spots, and we can ask the owners to come up and talk about the parking a bit. But I saw 3 and 4 bedroom apartments, which are very, very rare in today's day and time. So that's a good thing. I'm not at all opposed to it, but I still personally believe that even though it is affordable housing, people do own cars. The goal line is no longer going through that area.
Chair and Commission, so you're referencing the purple line.
Purple
and,
line.
No decisions have been made on that. I know that Ramsey County and the Metropolitan Council are doing additional study, and I don't want to go down this pathway too much, but they're looking at White Bear Avenue as a potential alternate corridor, but again, no decisions have been made one way or
Right.
the other.
But with all the opposition, I can't see that thing going through, so.
But I did want to emphasize, there is existing bus service that's what they're looking at. And I'm not trying to, I'll let you finish your point, but the property owner will, or the applicant will be able to speak more to their past project experience, because they've developed similar type projects throughout the metro and.
Because so
can provide
that's where
additional
I'm curious to hear how they can justify being so short and still think it's gonna be viable.
And Commissioner Desai, on the handicap parking or accessibility, they'll have to meet building code requirements no matter what. That's not none of us in this room have any leverage or
Right.
ability to provide that flexibility.
It's just that handicap parking takes away from the potential for the residents to have that parking available for them to park every day. That's the part that I am contending, that it's more than 31 spots. You're probably taking away 35 or 40 spots that way.
Sure, and Chair and Commission, in terms of handicap parking, the zoning code never makes a distinction between general use parking or accessible parking. It's still counted in that overall count, just, so.
Is there a percentage that has to be per square footage, or how is that calculated?
Not in the zoning code.
Okay.
And in the building code, there are, it's determined, there's a calculation.
Okay.
I don't know it.
Right. Yeah, the concern is that Markham up there, that used to be a senior home, and they turned it into regular parking, and there's no parking there, and that's can be a big issue.
Chair and Commission, I think that's why it potentially could be, again, your guidance on adding some language about any potential conversions.
Right.
Well, my question is that, parking or no parking, in this case now, I think we have a guiding or guides policy for that area specifically. In this case now, I'm looking at the Gladstone Neighborhood Development Plan. This does not comply or not in compliance with the items number 8 and 9. Items number 8 is talking about making the Gladstone Redevelopment Plan a model for others to follow. If that should be the case, then why are we compromising 27 spots of parking space? Then it's no more a model. If you're going to waive those 27 places, you should have more than enough parking space to substantiate the height of the building or the occupants. And then the number 9, make multimodal links between Gladstone and areas beyond. It does not even represent that by any means either. So I'm just wondering, why do we have all this itemized stuff and we expect the city council to approve this? That will be in contrary to the outlines over here for the area.
Chair and Commissioner, so to make the Gladstone redevelopment plan a model for others to follow, that's the plan itself. That's not necessarily this construction plan. And then number 9, make multimodal links between Gladstone and other areas beyond. Again, that's not incumbent on one project to solve that.
Yeah.
I would think there's an argument to say that this type of project would contribute to that movement of providing multimodal
But the
opportunities.
Gladstone plan is not talking about a specific project. We're talking about a neighborhood, a community. So it has to be reflective of the community when it was planned. So we are not talking about a single development or redevelopment in this case. But anyone before, whether a development, a new development, or redevelopment, we have to express this when it was formulated. That is what I'm talking about. So I'm not talking about this. When we approved the English first, we took all this into consideration. Another thing is that in that junction now, they just have that roundabout over there. With this 4 stories coming up now, and the addition of the yet-to-build commercial space for the English, don't you think that will be a busy intersection in this case? The city is owing the former VW something over there?
The city owns, Chair and Commission, the former Moose Lodge building across the street. Correct?
Exactly. So that is intended to be another, domain over there for that person. So looking at the Gladstone in respect to this new development and the space, I think 4 stories will be, too high for me, yeah.
But I think that's why they're here to get that approval, because if they didn't, they wouldn't need our approval at all. It would go right through the building,
Exactly.
so that's.
And that should have been
So
fine.
that's why they want to present what their options are to us. We haven't even heard what they have to say yet, so we should wait till they.
Oh, we can see it in the facade.
They might have a good reason why they don't want that many parking with the calculations. That's.
Yeah, and Chair and Commissioner, I would just echo that from a policy standpoint, the city has set the policy for this site and other sites in the neighborhood. They're not maximizing the site from a comprehensive site plan. They could add more units. And again, a conditional use permit being required for building height should not be seen as a limitation of height. There is no building height limitation for this site or any sites in Maplewood. It's a conditional use permit is a tool to help the city guide the development of that site, but not necessarily, I wouldn't look at it as a way to prevent said development. I'm not trying to presuppose any votes here. That's your discussion and your motion. But from a policy standpoint, from zoning code, comprehensive plan, this is a project from a staff point of view that is meeting those marks from the policies that have been set forth by the city council.
So in this case now, we have the city standards, and then we have this special area created. So which seems to be a subset of the city code and enforcement when this area was designated Gladstone redevelopment area. You know what I'm saying?
So small area plans, Chair and Commission, and we have a few of them. It's the Gladstone Plan, the North End Vision Plan, Rice and Larpenter Vision Plan. Those set visions. They're not code. They're not requirements.
No.
But in each of those cases of the 3 plans, they went to inform policies that were adopted by the city's comprehensive plan, which is enforceable and is the policy of the city. And then from that comprehensive plan, you create zoning codes that carry out those policies. So it's really comprehensive plan, and then zoning is what the Planning Commission is charged with carrying out.
So is the Gladstone neighborhood redevelopment, is it enforceable or not?
Via the comprehensive plan and the zoning codes that it informs.
So it's just to inform, not enforce.
Chair and commission, again, they're called vision plans, and they're small area plans. They are not codified in of themselves.
No, this one is talking about redevelopment, but not vision plan.
Sure, that's somewhat of just word here, word over here. It's the same type of small area plan that, again, informs policies that were adopted by the Gladstone small redevelopment plan was really adopted by the 2030 plan, and now it carried through again in the 2040 plan. So these policies have been in place. Some of those density ranges did get adjusted from 2030 to 2040. But these policies have been in place for multiple years. And again, what's enforceable is the comprehensive plan and the zoning code.
Oh, I see.
Because we were dealing with that down the street where the old boat place was too, with
Yeah.
that apartment building there, same deals, right?
Well, Chair and Commission, some of the same conversations, that was a different type of project because it needed a comprehensive plan amendment, which is a different discussion than what is being brought to you
'Cause the property
before
was-
tonight.
Was different, yeah, right. Okay, so.
You indicated that, if it were not to be a four-story building, it will not come to the planning commission.
Chair and Commission, and that was a hypothetical. I'm just trying to illustrate what is permitted by right, what kicks in conditional use permits, and what the policy density range is for this site. So there is more maximization that they could do with the site, or if they made the same type of units but at 3 stories worked. Yeah, not every project comes through the Planning Commission. Some just go to Design Board.
Okay, I would like to hear what you have to say about the fourth.
Okay, so one of the representatives like to come up then and state your name and,
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. I'm Justin Fincher with JB Vang, the developer on the project. There's a lot of comments made, so I'm going to take a step back, maybe clarify kind of where we've been in the process for the past 4 years and speak to hopefully most of the comments here. So this is our 4th year in submission to the state of Minnesota, MHFA, for the tax credit program, which allows us to provide this level of affordability in Maplewood, which Maplewood is in need of. I think we're all aware of that. Happy to report this year we were finally awarded our 9% allocation through the state of Minnesota. And to receive that award, you have to go through what is a very competitive process in order to be allocated those tax credits. And part of that process is the program and unit mix that you are proposing, and also the affordability levels that you're proposing, and also the type of units in that unit mix that you would be proposing. So Gladstone Village is 100% affordable housing with ranges from 30% AMI, area median income, up to 60% AMI. In addition to that, we have units that are set aside for people with disabilities, people with high priority homeless units that will be serviced through Ramsey County, but also we'll have full-time property management staff, supportive housing staff on site, and also supportive housing units. In addition to that, like I said, we have units at 30% AMI. So just going down that list, 18 units at 30% AMI, 14 units for people with disabilities or high priority homeless units, and then 14 supportive housing units. So, we carefully structured this unit mix and this count in order to increase our overall competitiveness with MHFA. If we change this mix, we jeopardize our scoring, we jeopardize our credits, we jeopardize the entire project. Right. And a big proponent that we are at JB Vang is to provide family-friendly housing. We've done those types of deals. We've done them on the east side of St. Paul, most recently the Parkway Apartments with 60 units, family-friendly. And what I mean by family-friendly is we focus our unit ratio to have more larger units, so 2s, 3s, and in this case, 4-bedroom unit types. And at the Parkway, 60 units, we have 60 parking stalls on site, some surface and some underground. That has been in operation for over a year. We have had received no complaints about lack of parking from tenants inside the building or from residents, and that's in a much more densely populated area. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. Here, we're at 1.58. We decided we would love to be at least 1.5, and the brilliant work from our architects at Urban Works, David Holland, who's here tonight, was able to maximize our parking count even more than what we thought we needed. So I'm a little surprised to hear that there's still concern around the parking. And, you know, we'll work with our residents to make sure that that parking plan is meeting all of the needs of our tenants. Like I said, Premier Property Management Group is our full-time property manager that will be on site, managing those tenants and the parking that's on you know, within our property.
So if you're looking at the units, how you broke that down, how many of those do you think are not probably very likely to even drive? You think there's going to be 20 of them that aren't even going to drive, right?
I would say over 30.
Okay. That are going to be what? Not even have a vehicle
Oh, got it.
right.
Okay.
Because of their
Yep.
handicapped or income or whatever, so. What was the place you said you had just recently finished building? Where is that?
It's called the Parkway Apartments. It's on the east side of St. Paul,
Okay.
Where is it at on the east side?
along East 7th Street.
Oh, East 7th Street.
Yep.
Okay.
You have one down in Burnsville. I looked like a building exactly like that. I drove by today and I thought, well, that looks just exactly the same.
Yeah. And Chair and Commissioners, we actually have another project it's still under construction, also in St. Paul, and that unit ratio it's a little over 1.0 or 1-to-1, and we don't foresee any issues at that property either. So, and we also consulted with not only Urban Works but our property management staff, Premier Property Management, who has hundreds of units under management, and they don't foresee any issue. It was a non-issue for them, really.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of reports lately that say that the numbers are a little bit high, but we only go by what we've seen at other buildings that show that they don't have enough parking, so that was our only concern. But I can see that because of the lack of drivers here, I don't see that really being a real huge issue. I don't know, unless these guys have a.
I've got a question for you. If this would turn into market rate apartments at some point in the future, and you did need more parking, I think that front entryway area is quite green. There's a lot of green space there. I don't know if you could get enough spaces out of that. Maybe that's a question for the architect or somebody, but that's the potential too for this down the road, that we wouldn't be having a problem. I mean, even if we approved it now and it turned into market rate, we'd still have some extra site to use for extra parking then too, correct?
Yes, that's a potential, Chair and Commissioners. To that point, a part of our plan for this property is to own it long-term. And actually, part of the funding award was to provide long-term affordability, our funding award with the state. And that is a 50-year period.
Okay.
How many years?
50 years.
So you're almost obligated for 50 years. Wow.
Not almost, we are.
Yeah, 50 years. Okay. Wow, that is
And
a long time.
Chair, Commissioners, I should add, I mean, we don't do a lot of market rate, but in order for it to be converted to market rate after that 50-year period, someone would have to be comfortable owning and managing that current design under a market rate scenario, and I would leave it to that potential buyer or owner to determine if they're going to even have a marketable site at that point, which I still think they would, personally.
Right. Thank you.
But if you're obligated for 50 years, but that does not stop you from selling it off to another purchaser who would be obligated to keep it as market rate housing?
Chair, Commissioners, no, we are not able to sell the property. The limited partnership must maintain ownership for that affordability period.
That's why they're so hard to get, huh?
Yes.
Staff, is here, but I'd still like to ask a question regarding that. Do we have similar type of housing that has got this grant that binds the ownership to 50 years?
No, so the type of funding that the applicant is talking about it's very difficult to secure. And as Justin mentioned, the city council for each of those 4 years has submitted resolutions of support for their application. So this has been on the council's radar for many years, and we've worked with other developers on other sites, namely across the street, a little east, the old Gladstone House, on similar funding. No, we've never, I mean, I don't want to go back for the entire history of Maplewood, but for what I'm aware of, no, we haven't even come close until this project.
Right.
This is the first of its kind in
They're very
Maplewood.
competitive. When you read stories about the funding that, or that's dedicated from Minnesota Housing, it's a very competitive program.
They have to give up their children and everything, don't you?
But that basically then tells me that the original comment you had from the CDRB to put in a stipulation for market rate housing, I think it would be absurd to put that in my mind, when it is a 50-year time period. None of us are going to be around to be looking at it at that
Well,
point.
and Chair and Commissioner, I didn't know about the 50 years.
Well, also, we didn't know if the last meeting took time out, we didn't know that you canceled the property, so we thought maybe, okay, develop it 5 years later, but he didn't mention
Yeah,
that, so.
yeah. So that changes everything in my mind.
Transaction.
Well, don't worry about it then.
And for that matter, then I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice to have that there. We need properties like that, and it looks like a nice building. You know, I always suggest a pool, because I'd like to use the pools and these. Nobody builds them, though.
If we could have less parking, maybe we could fit a pool in there.
One last question. When I walked that property earlier this week, I saw on the fencing by the ramp that goes into the basement for drive, there is a fencing, and then there are mobile homes. Those mobile homes are still going to stay there, correct?
Chair Commissioners, that's correct. That is not
Part of this
property.
property development, okay.
You couldn't accidentally just go a little bit further and bulldoze them over, or?
No, there's a nice fence.
So, thank you for your time. I think we're good on that, so thanks.
Okay.
Good luck on that, then.
Thank you.
How come we didn't push them to the Moose Lodge property, then?
Chair and Commission, they came to us.
Okay.
So just a reminder, this is a public hearing.
Yep. Is there anyone that'd like to speak on this?
Ladies first. Hi, I'm Donna Borchert, co-owner. My husband and I own Borchert's Meat Market at 1344 Frost Avenue, potentially our new neighbors, as we are hoping, since we are very excited about the project. I recognize some of you, so I know you've been in to the store. It's been a tough year. We are very excited about having new residents in the area to serve and to be a part of the community. We're requesting, not, you said a pool, but we're thinking maybe a grilling area would be great to have. I think the building looks beautiful. We were at the last meeting at the park, and we're happy with the size. We, too, sometimes are concerned about parking. This unit, not so much. We have the funeral home, and a lot of times we have a lot of people that park in our lot, and that makes it a little bit tricky. But they look like they've provided quite a bit more parking than what we currently see for the residents there that are using the funeral home. So I just want to say we're here to support, and I think it's a great program, and we're super excited about all the things coming in the community. We're hanging by a thread, but we're hoping to be there for these buildings that are forthcoming.
I think, too, it'll better have more eyes on the building, too, to limit the break-ins, too, you know.
Yeah. I'll put my name here, and I think Dave wants to say a few things, but we are headed to a hockey game, so he's got to be quick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Dave Borchert, co-owner of Borchert's Meat Market, 1344 Frost Avenue. Donna pretty much put it in a nutshell. We are actually way looking forward to this project. There's also 2 other projects that are coming down the pipeline as well. And the dreaded Moose Lodge, so whatever you guys can do to speed that along would be awesome. But back to this project, we've had many discussions with these guys. They've crossed all their T's, dotted all their I's. Looks really good, and we're very, very excited to get this thing rolling. And we want to change with the times, with their scope of this community coming in, the ethnic side of things, trying to change our offerings from a store. You know, yes, we're a meat market, but we also have full grocery, so we're trying to change it as we go and keep up with the times, so to speak. And I think it's vital to our business that we have a good mix in our neighborhood. And that's about it.
Do you have to do anything to be, is it EBT qualified or anything?
We already are.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the folks that are coming here, and even the other project for the Gladstone House, you know, we do accept EBT, so that's already a given for
Good.
that standpoint. And on the bus line, so we do have a lot of walkers from the area.
Okay.
So you plan on staying there for more than 50 years?
Oh, God, I hope so. Unless the city does something else, but we're vested, so we don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, so, yeah, as long as Maplewood will have us, we're gonna be there. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Good. Thanks, Dave. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, my son and your daughter were in show choir together.
Oh, yep. So we're off to hockey. Good evening, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? Rita, would you like to say anything? Not yet? Okay. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. And someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution for a conditional use permit, conditional use permit approving a 4-story, 65-unit multi-family apartment project to be constructed at 1310 Frost Avenue East.
Second.
Motion by Allen, second by Deshar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. And this will go before the city council on same day?
May 8th,
8th.
yes, Chair and Board,
So-
or Commission.
Thank you. Good luck on your building and. The screen. We are number F, new business zoning code, sign code regulation discussion. Rita.
All right, just give me a second to get the clicker. All right. I'm back. You forgot everything and I need to present again, right?
That's true. Yes, I did.
All right. So, this evening, just to kind of circle back, the purpose was to kind of provide an overview of the changes that we made, ask some specific questions, and get direction from you. As we've done in the past, this is the initial discussion with you, and then based on how well this goes, if it goes well enough, we would prepare eventually the public hearing, and then you would have an actual public hearing on the changes to the sign code. But we're not there yet. So tonight it's, did I miss anything? Do you have questions? Is anything confusing? And then I have 2 specific questions. Before I go to my specific questions, in your review, was anything alarming or anything I presented? Because you didn't get a chance to talk when I first presented.
That's why I lost all my thought then.
I know, you were taking notes, weren't you?
I
Yes.
did, some of them, yes.
There's a question.
Yes.
Who regulates the signs on campuses?
On what?
On campuses, on institutions, school campuses, like University of Minnesota?
There are regulations in here for institutional and public uses. And then if they are big enough, they would actually come under like a comprehensive sign plan, and then they're reviewed by the Community Design Review Board.
So if there is a county road going through University of Minnesota, University of Minnesota will regulate the signs, on the signage on that?
You mean not in Maplewood? Are we talking just in general life? In general life, usually the city would regulate it. However, if you have like a University of Minnesota or a huge hospital campus, usually there is some type of comprehensive plan that they do for wayfinding, and they create a whole, obviously, series of connected signs that all are branded and make sense.
The hospital.
And how those are reviewed, I would assume that the city has some review of it, but generally those campuses are kind of themselves, and so they actually usually have a whole sign plan that they develop.
The hospital has those signs to get to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Chair and Commission, the closest thing I think to Commissioner Iggy's example is 3M, and they do have a comprehensive sign plan. The hospital does as well. So that's how we regulate those. It's 10 acres or more, then you have a comp
And
sign
most
plan.
of the time when we've been involved, taking off my planner hat, as a firm, the landscape architects have been involved from time to time with like a visual communications company to develop those kinds of sign plans. They usually hire consultants that are specialized in this to develop how they're going to look.
Frederick.
So,
I didn't get a chance to read every word. Usually I do, but I didn't, I'm sorry. But,
it's okay. You'll have a second chance.
Did they state anything about, when they build up construction sites, they put those fences around the property that has all the, like, done by Ryan or?
Oh, yes.
Is there something that covers that in there? Because I didn't
Yes.
see it.
So the way that we had to change it, because it used to be called something else, and as you know, as I said, there are construction signs, and we can't actually say construction signs anymore. So I don't know it's under temporary signs. It's under my page 7, which of course your packet may have different numbering, which is always a little bit of a gamble for me. But under temporary signs, which is section 44-737, we now have sections like properties with open building permits. This is the kind of signage you can have. Properties that are for sale or rent, this is the kind of signage you can have. So a property with an open building permit technically is supposed to have is allowed one temporary sign immediately prior to or during the construction of the development. Each sign shall not exceed a ratio of 1 square foot for each 1,000 square foot of lot area or 64 square feet in height. Now, how you're handling with the whole blah, 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 I know what you're talking about. I don't know if you're regulating those a lot or not.
Because I know that would exceed anything that's written in here,
Yep.
so.
Is that something that what they're doing is bothersome today?
No, it actually makes it look nicer because
Okay.
it's cleaned up and you don't see all the garbage and the construction going on.
Yep.
You know?
We can look at that. I would say your code doesn't really address that right now. To the fullest extent, it probably happens. And it's a fairly common situation.
Rita, I had a question regarding murals. When you were explaining that earlier, I didn't quite understand or hear properly that I see a lot of wall murals, a whole side of a building has a mural there. Now, if we were to have a mural like that, and that business also happens to have the business's name embedded in that mural, is that okay or not okay?
No, unfortunately, because of the way that we have to regulate signs today, we would have to say that it wouldn't be allowed. You can have a mural like the ones I gave, which are beautiful, but you can't have, the actual sign that would have their name in it would have to be separate and counted against the signage that they're allowed. It couldn't be embedded anymore. There's no good way of really doing it because of the fact that we can't regulate content. So the only way to really do it is to separate the two into murals and signs for commercial speech. So the good news is, I think you don't have any, right? That's my understanding? So it's not like we're making anything non-conforming. And it doesn't mean that they can't have a sign. We're just saying, in the beautiful mural, you can't have the sign of, like, the name of your business in there. But you can still have a sign. You can still have a wall sign. The mural is not counted against your signage allowance. It's a kind of a total separate element. So the good news is, it doesn't count against them. It just beautifies the side of the building.
Now, that's commercial and business. You can't do that in your house, right?
I would say no, but I don't know if I specifically wrote it that way.
Yeah, because I might
So
go
I'll
home
go
and
back
paint my
and look.
house.
No, I agree with you, but I'll have to go back and look how.
Because I would think in
ever-
the neighborhoods, that might be a little distracting if everybody started to do artwork on their house,
No.
you know?
So this,
Alan's thinking about it. Mhm. Now, the banners those floppy things on the street, is there only one allowed? Is that what I read too?
Just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. We're talking those.
Yes,
Yes.
Only
It's
one.
one per 150 feet of street frontage.
because I usually see about 4 or 5 when they're always out.
Yeah, I think that's going to render some of those that you have today not allowed, but we thought that number was, I mean, they're supposed to be temporary, so at some point, they're going to have to be taken down, and you wouldn't let the new ones get put up.
Nope.
That number we just picked, it can, that's the one time where we actually had to pick a number. We can make it bigger or smaller,
think
if
2
you
would
want
be-
an example, a
anything over
precedent.
2.
What?
I think 2 would be fine if they're within a distance, 50 feet or whatever, but I think 2 would be the max. I don't know.
What do you all think? Because I
I'll
don't
stick
have,
with 150.
others
Gets to,
like
cluttering.
less.
What'd you say?
I'd
Just one?
stick with 150, yeah, 1 for 150.
Okay. And what about those things the big wavy arm things, with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
gorilla and all that?
I think you don't actually allow them today, right? That's what I thought we talked about. They're not allowed here. They're allowed
Okay.
other places. They're not as common, though, as they used to be. Now that these exist, I don't think people do them as much because these do that movement to attract your attention, so people don't. I know, I was like, great, I'm on TV now doing this, but whatever. That the wavy guys aren't as common, I think.
So we don't have to have everything on there against them because it's already.
If
in
it's
the-
not listed in here, then they would say they're not allowed.
Okay.
What about election signs?
Yeah, that's a fun one. There's actually a provision in here specifically, but it doesn't say that that's what it's for.
Uh-huh.
But there is a provision in the temporary signage, and I can find it, that is anything that meets a state statute, they have to be allowed, and we have to do that. That's how we cover election signage, is we refer back to the state statute. I have to find it.
And those are no limit on the time either during the.
There's, well, state statute has limits,
Yeah.
but we need to follow what that says. The thing that's a little bit disconcerting to me is that it basically allows any sign. It doesn't say election sign. It's just like during a period of time, we have a hard time regulating signs. And that's just the way it is because of the content nature, because political signs still need to be allowed. So let's see. I can find it. It's in here. Oh, so it's considered a non-commercial sign. It is in section 44737, if people want to find it. And it's 1A5.
What page?
1. My page is 7. Back to page 7 that you had before. Thank you. I realized after I got here, I was like, oh, I should have printed it from the packet, not from my copy.
Do you think that the?
So
30
any sign which meets the statute 211B045, that covers political signs, and that's why it's there. But it is specifically non-commercial signs as opposed to commercial signs. And we do define, commercial speech is specifically defined as is non-commercial speech. So that covers political signs or Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, those kind of signs.
But there is time limit for it, right?
What?
There will be a time limit for it.
Yes, statute has a time limit. I apologize, I don't remember what it is. It's like so many days before the election and so many days after the election, you can have those signs out, and it has specific things.
Yeah, but then the BLM signs are year-round that you see in people's yards.
Right.
And then this parade of home things where they go out and put a whole bunch of house number 16 and 25 and whatever, and they sit around for weeks on end.
So technically, the other signs that are not election-related fall under like one commercial sign per property. That's the next clause, one non-commercial sign which is not illuminated, not exceeding 16 square feet, no more than 6 feet in height. So that's where it gets a little, it's not as nice anymore that we can't specifically say garage sales, real estate, because we're not allowed to do that, so everything kind of gets a little mushy, and there's a little bit more that have to be allowed.
What happened that they couldn't be specific? There was just some.
So there was a legal case where a city, town of Gilbert, didn't allow us signage, and so that's when they decided that the city doesn't really have a right to to regulate signage based on what you say on the sign. It only makes sense that we have the right to base it on the district that the property or the use of the property, but we can't say, you know, because you want to do a real estate sign, it has to be this big, but you want to do a garage sale, it has to be this big, and, oh, you want to sell something so it can be this big, you know, so that's what the courts were getting at. But it makes it a lot harder to write a sign ordinance.
No, you could eliminate profanity, can't you? Or is that-
Yes, that's not allowed on any sign,
Right, right.
correct.
And also the 35 height on the billboards, is that,
That's your existing code.
okay, because
I didn't do anything with that, because we had gone through we're gonna clean it up, we're gonna try and make it easier to use, and other than new things, like the ground banner, we were not gonna make changes to your code, because it's a number, and the number is hard to say good, bad, or otherwise. So
some of those
unless
things
you
are
all
100 feet
thought.
tall.
What?
Some of those are 100 feet tall in the air, some of them.
Yeah. Are they, your billboards?
Some, not here in Maplewood, but when
Oh.
you're driving, it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
I think
That's
Wiper,
probably because, I mean, if you're talking the drive-in, that thing has been around forever, right? And it was in the rural county, it probably didn't have quite the sign regulations when it was, now it would be a historic sign that everybody would love, right?
true.
All right, so ground banner signs. It sounds like the regulations we proposed are good. Do you think they should be allowed in the districts, the R3 non-residential, all non-residential, the mixed-use districts? That was the other
Oh,
question.
the north end of that?
What?
The north end? of
Yeah,
that?
for some reason, I always want to say mixed use and just lump mixed use and North End together to me, but I should say both, so I apologize. Thank you.
Confuses us.
I know, I got to stop doing that.
I'm easily confused.
So does it make sense to you that they're allowed in all districts? Do you want to limit it more?
But let's just say you have a school in one of these areas. Then they're gonna have even a dynamic sign in front of it, like we have allowed at some of our recently renovated schools.
Okay.
So if you do it there, then I think you should be able to do it elsewhere on that format. But mixed use would apply, in my mind, northeast or north end should apply. Non-residential, R3 is a question mark, but then again, schools can be in R3.
Right.
So
So it makes sense to you that it's institutional and public uses.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sounds like it would make sense that it might be like multifamily uses, because I was giving the example before. If you have a new construction and it's like now renting, I could see
should allow that.
doing
yeah.
that. What about for like townhouse projects or that
Similar,
scale?
same rule.
It's mostly just the single-family duplexes, twin
Yep.
homes, those kind of lower scale.
But it
Right.
limits the amount, right? You can't have 50 of them on,
Well, yeah, right now it says one per 150
Right,
feet.
right.
So if you have less than 150 feet, you still get one. It's just, if you're a school, maybe you have 300 feet of frontage and you could have two. We don't regulate where, they could still be close together. We're not saying they have to be 150 feet apart. But we could do that. I don't think
if
we
it was
need to.
300, you could get three, one at the start, one in the middle, at the end.
They could, I don't know if you need to regulate the placement so much. The city has the right of saying, this is obstructing views, you have to move it. That's already in the general regulations, so.
Now, is this going to eliminate them, because it used to be they had to always come before us for signs, didn't they? Is this going to kind of,
Are we talking about schools again? I'm sorry.
any signs, usually when anyone requested a sign, they usually had to come before us and get a okay,
Are you talking about dynamic displays?
Any sign.
any sign, didn't they always, no, it was just the
No,
dynamic?
Chair and Commission, there's a handful of sign requests, like a comprehensive sign plan or temporary banner for extended period of time. Those would go to the design board, but outside of a variance, nothing would be coming to the planning commission.
Okay. So
Can you mix both temporary and permanent signs together?
Yes. So there's a limit in the permanent sign section of the number and size. And you have a maximum number and a maximum size. Temporary signs are kind of regulated totally separately and independently of how many permanent signs you have. But they're not allowed, in theory, most of them are not allowed to have for years and years and years and years. You know, you're getting it for, Yeah, it's just, I can't say for certainty because you have a lot of like different regulations depending on different signs, but the intention of a temporary is that they are not there year in and year out. They come down for a while, then they might go back up, those kinds of things.
Well, my reference is that we had COVID for 3 years now.
Yep.
In my church, we have a permanent sign, and then they have a temporary one for 3 years. Come in and get your shots or something like that. Is that a violation?
Probably.
Yes.
I mean, the reality is, yeah, the reality is a lot of times with signage, it's, you know, if it gets seen or if it's bugging someone, those are the kinds of things. If it gets tattered, you know, those are the things we're more concerned about than
That's right.
that kind of thing.
We get it.
No, what about, almost, Fred. I'm getting kicked under the table. Like for farmers markets and that, you know, they go for the season. So that 30 days is going to be tough because they always want to have the signs up for that season, you know, the summer season. Is that something we should address in that, or?
I would assume, I will check with staff and make sure that we think the temporary sign works for that situation. I don't know that you all know, as I do, like exactly how that falls into all of these, so we'll look at that.
But isn't the farmer's market sign on the Aldrich Arena's billboard type sign that is dynamic?
Chair and Commission, that would be one scenario, yeah, and then in that case, you know, where there's no city further interaction with
Correct,
that. But,
correct.
But if they had, I was thinking, envisioning like, I don't know, do they put up the little signs that kind of say farmer's market today or any of that?
I don't know about that
Yes,
one
they do.
specifically.
They do?
Yes.
Okay, because those are under off-site temporary signs, and then you have regulations based on private, if they put them on private property or on the public right-of-way, you have those provisions.
But only for 30 days, though.
But I don't know if I have the number for you, the dates.
Okay.
You might know, but I don't know. There's a lot of limits in here.
Yeah, most of them were 30.
When he's talking about farmer's market, we've got this community gardens that the church has
Yep.
allowed. Now their sign is sitting out there for the church that says it's a community garden forever. I can't even tell you how many years it's been there, but it's been there.
Yep.
How does that work in here? Like, did they even apply for that sign to be put up? And it's a pretty good sign, I would say. It's probably 4 or 5 feet by 10 feet wide.
Where's that one? On Rice
Across from the fire station.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We'll have to look at that. I assume that we don't have an answer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Now you guys are gonna be looking at signs and calling these guys all the time. What about this sign? What about this
That's
sign?
a permanent sign, though.
Is it? That's the question.
Yes, it is.
And like, was it taken permitted through the system for such a big sign?
I don't know, it's a church, I guess they.
We'll look at it.
It's not for a church. The sign is for the garden. If it was for a church, it would be a different
All right.
story again.
I'm gonna circle us back because we didn't finish my questions. Is there a time limit that you think is reasonable for a ground banner sign? Should it be
60
treated-
days.
60? Okay, thanks. I just wanted to get back to make sure. Before I forgot. I was worried I'd forget. I'd go back and I'd be like, I don't know.
Make one up.
I'm good at that, but I like to ask what you guys think more. All right. I had one more question, but before I do, any other concerns, things you want to talk about?
Unless I want to get hit with
Nope, I
the,
think it's well done.
All right, I'm not done yet, though. Okay, this was, the other one was dynamic displays. Currently, the code was silent on dynamic displays in the mixed use in the North End District. So, do you think that it's reasonable that you would allow dynamic displays in those districts? Is the first question. I heard someone say yes, but
I think,
With the way we look
the new
at
guy
it,
said
yeah.
yes, but we want to beat him after.
yes?
Makes sense.
Yes.
I
You're
guess
not-
that would be
all right.
something I want to ask Mike. Is that going to detract, do you think, from what we've all planned up there? Or you think that's going to be, I mean, as long as there's regulations, so it's still going to be pretty strict, right?
Yeah, Chair and Commission, I mean, from a staff perspective, I think with those regulations, I don't know that we'd be overly concerned from a staff perspective. I think again, when we started, as Rita mentioned, when we started regulating these type of signs, I think there was a lot more concern about what they meant and what they were going to do to the community, and I think we kind of now know how they work with the fabric of our commercial areas and our mixed-use areas, and I don't think that there's the same level of concern at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's a problem.
Okay, so, can you, what page is 18? Yeah. What page is it? No, what page is it on in your packet? 82. Can you go to 82 with me? So, it sounds like we're thinking it's okay. We can't exactly take the standards from the BC heavy or light industrial district in their verbatim. So the way that you currently have them, you have institutional or public uses basically are the only types of uses in residential, other commercial districts. So that doesn't really apply. That doesn't make sense. So we would look to the BC, M1, and M2 districts. So generally the provisions make sense, right? They're allowed as part of a permanent sign. We don't want to have more than 50%. So hopefully you're with me. Are you with me in the middle of the page, B? Yeah? Okay. It's okay. I can read it still. Must be located 200 feet from any property where there are structures used for residential purposes. That one we can't do, or else you'll never have a dynamic display sign in the mixed use or North End district. So if it's okay, I'll just eliminate that one because it doesn't really make sense since we're promoting mix of residential and commercial. 100 feet from any side property line, I'm a little concerned about that one too. That seems like it's pretty far back. So we may make some adjustments to those setbacks. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yep.
If you had
Sounds-
opinions, you can let me know. Otherwise, we'll make a recommendation, and I'll make sure to circle back with you on that when we go to the public hearing.
I think most of those were written because of the schools, I think is how we kind of came to a lot of the conclusions. Didn't we work on this, Elizabeth? Then, yeah.
Yeah, we did. We created a separate section specifically for institutional uses in any zoning district, essentially.
Right.
I think those setbacks are maybe more of a, from that previous code.
Yeah,
when it
which
was
totally
first
made sense
adopted.
for that, but
Right.
it doesn't work for the mixed use. So I just wanted to highlight now that we'll bring the first and the fourth one, makes sense, and then we'll need to work with staff to figure out exactly. But we didn't do that because we didn't even know if you'd think it was appropriate, since it hadn't been included before.
And you're right, the institutional dynamic displays are slightly more restrictive.
Right.
Thanks. Anything else we should chat about? Oh, I didn't do it on this one. Sorry. Next steps. I wrote it in my head. I didn't put it on the slide. Next steps. We'll make changes. We will find out the information we didn't know tonight that you tested us on and have that for the next time. And then if it's okay with you, we'll probably talk about it with the city council because we haven't done that yet. And then we would prepare a public hearing and you'd hold the public hearing for the change. So if you had concerns, we can certainly circle back, but it feels like we're headed in the right direction, so it probably makes sense that we could go right to public hearing if that works for all of you. Cool.
You know best.
It's fun to see you guys.
You got any new recipes so we could keep you here a little bit longer for Fred?
I had nothing else, unless you have anything else.
I think we're
Awesome.
good.
Thanks for the time tonight. It was nice to get your input.
Thanks
Yeah,
for all
Chair-
the work you do.
Chair and Commission, I'll just thank the group here and Rita for your flexibility and working with the design board to let their meeting run the course that it needed to and sitting in, so Rita just had to do the full presentation once. I think that was efficient use of everyone's time, so
Made
I
a lot of
appreciate
sense.
your
Yep.
flexibility.
Yep. Any staff presentations, visitors presentations? I make a motion.
Oh, Chair, just, I know we're wrapping up here. Nothing from staff. I did just want to point out again, Commissioner Osman he has been serving on the design board. He was appointed by the council to the planning commission. Maybe if you gave him 30 seconds to introduce himself to the commission.
I'll make it quick because I want to eat too. So, Tom Osmond, thanks for having me at my first meeting. I've been on the community designer group board for 2 years. I live in Maplewood. I've lived in Maplewood my whole life, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Sounds good.
And you've been there for 2 years and you didn't want to come here, or what happened there?
I'm on both now, so.
Okay.
He's
You
going to
wanna-
be
you wanna
even a
quit
bigger
there?
volunteer.
You'll want to quit there and stay here full-time.
Yeah, it's fun. I got certification twice. Twice, this is fun.
So what have you been looking at for the past 3 years?
I make a motion, we adjourn. All those in favor?
Thanks, you do.
Yeah, do it.